There's a new evidence that further substantiates the charge that the Syrian government has used chemical weapon in the ongoing war. The Organization for the Prohibition of the Chemical Weapon has uncovered this fresh evidence. News agency Reuters has published the findings of OPCW lab test carried out by the organization that has found that signatures of sarin from the samples of 3 attacks in Ghouta, Idlib and Aleppo. If it is true, the report proves a link between Syrian government's stockpile of chemical weapons to the use of sarin in Ghouta. And I'm joined by my colleague Daniele Pagani from Amman. Daniele, what does this ultimately prove? It's a confirmation of a suspicion that chemical weapons were used, and this is perhaps after what happened in 1980s during Iraq-Iran war?
Okay, go on, patch me again.
I think there's a bit of a technical problem with my colleague. We'll try to go back and connect with Daniele, but the fact of the matter is that now the evidence of chemical warfare has emerged. Now both the sides have charged each other that the chemical warfare or the chemical weapons were being used, but this is an issue on which international community has taken positions as per their strategic interest. So not much consensus has been created on it. But what it does is that the citizens have borne the brunt of this savage war. So Daniele, coming to you, what does this mean when it comes to this war in Syria?
Sorry, can you please repeat the question?
Daniele, what does this mean? This ultimately confirms the suspicion that yes, the chemicals were being used against citizens, common people.
If this does not confirm entirely the suspicions, this is, I would say, an irrefutable evidence. We are talking about laboratories who researched on the chemical composition of the sarin gas found by UN sources on the ground in the places where attack took place, and they compared it with the weapons which were inside the Syrian government warehouses, and the chemical compositions do match. So it will be very hard now to build a narrative where the Syrian government can say they were not responsible for this, because here we have two options. One, they have been covering up all these and they knew exactly what was going on. Second, they didn't know, which means that there are sections of the army acting independently from the government, and this is also another problem. So either way, it's going to be a problem.
But you know, Daniele, in terms of consensus on the usage of the chemical warfare or the usage of the chemical weapon, we have seen that you have this unrestrained silence by superpowers on this issue, unless and until it strategically suits them. Daniele, can you hear me? I think there's a bit of a problem with my colleague Daniele Pagani, but the point which my colleague made on this is that chemical weapons were used, there are links, and now finally the issue is that when will international community create the consensus on this issue?